All right, guys, got a big one here for you in prime time off season for fantasy football. We're talking about fantasy football running back must-haves, running backs we love. On the show, got a special guest, Ryan Pohle from Rotowire. Welcome to the show, Ryan. Excited to have you on.
Hey, counselor. Good to be with you.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk, man. So you work for Rotowire. We want to tell everybody a little bit about who Rotowire is. I know the reason I had you on, I don't really network with a lot of other fantasy people, but I actually worked with Rotowire when I initially got into the fantasy industry. So I'm like, I wanted to reconnect, see what you guys are up to. So I'm excited to talk to you today. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and a little bit about Rotowire?
Yeah, so Rotowire is a fantasy website that does a variety of different things. We cover sports betting, we cover player news is probably what we're most known for. If you ever go on like DraftKings and click on a player,
Yeah.
you'll see our player news. We do projections. We pretty much cover every sport from NFL all the way to cricket. So
Cricket's huge. I heard cricket is massive overseas, like absolutely massive.
exactly. Like nobody follows it here, but there are people outside of the US that are looking for info on that. We cover daily fantasy sports. We've got optimizers for pretty much every sport. I'm the daily fantasy sports manager at Rotowire, so I'm
Right.
constantly working on projection DFS projections for every sport and just trying to come up with new innovative ideas to improve our DFS product as a whole.
So it's gonna be really good to get your insight because do you dive right into the stats? There's a lot of analytical stuff, like statistical stuff, a lot of backing that we can dive into, right? With you.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a wide variety of stats on every sport. Obviously, analytics are becoming very mainstream. Even in obviously like baseball is kind of the first sport you think of for like
Tons of stats.
analytics, but like you're seeing it more and more with NFL with the sites like Football Outsiders DVOA, and just all the other targets like ADOT and whatnot. So we definitely factor all that kind of stuff into our projections.
Yeah, so we got an exciting one today with you, Ryan. We're talking running back must-haves, running backs we love. I saw your running back, so I'm going to be debating you on two of them because I completely disagree with you. Maybe you're such a DFS guy that these guys are DFS viable, the two that you're mentioning, and could go off on certain games for sure. So we're going to have a little bit of a spirited debate. So we're going to dive into that. Before we do, guys, they do have an optimizer. So go to rotowire.com and sign up for their optimizer. Simply sign up for their account, and then you can get into the DFS optimizer. If you play DFS, DraftKings, FanDuel, this is going to be a great way to make sure you guys crush your leagues. Any information on the optimizer, how it works, they go to Rotowire, they just create an account, and they can get a subscription to the optimizer, right?
Yep, we have different subscription packages to subscribe to the site to subscribe to DFS specifically. Yeah, we launched a new NFL optimizer for this season. It's updated from our previous version, has a lot of
Right.
customizations. If you like to do 150 lineups, if you like to do a bunch of different like stacks, we've got everything you need for it.
Yeah, and Rotowire is great for stats and it's going to help you guys get the edge. But the reason I love DFS is because after like a lot of people like they're week 7 and they're like, oh, I lost, I'm done, my year is over. Well, you should never give up first and foremost. But after like week 9, it's like I want to keep going with fantasy, get into daily fantasy. Okay, it's a lot of fun. So rotowire.com, go create an account right now and try the optimizer. All right, so let's dive right into this, guys. Also, grab the 16-round draft solution. Use code SMASH to save. It's going to help you guys with your drafts. Use code SMASH to save 16 rounds. Linked both below and to the link to Rotowire below here in the comments. All right, so let's dive into this. Let's go with the first running back that you love. We'll go with your guy first here. We'll jump right into it. Who's your first guy here that you absolutely must have? This is for year long, and maybe you can give us a DFS daily fantasy spin for the DFS people.
Yeah, so obviously it's going to depend a little bit on where you draft. My first guy is Saquon Barkley as my must-have. And, if you're picking early in your draft, like, yeah, you're not going to take Saquon at, the 104 or whatever. But,
Yeah.
like, if you're at the end of your drafts, I personally like to get a running back with one of my first two picks, as long as there's somebody I really like. And when you look at Saquon, you're looking at a guy that could lead the NFL
Right.
in touches. And that's really what it's about is you want guys that are on the field. there's really no competition behind him.
Yep.
Dable's done a good job of kind of turning that franchise around. Daniel Jones is playing better. And when I look at other running backs in that range, like a Nick Chubb,
Right.
yeah, I mean, Chubb's going to get a ton of carries, but like if you're playing in a PPR league, like his ceiling is pretty limited because he's going to catch like one pass a game essentially.
Yep.
So I think Barkley's a great guy you can take at like 10, 11, 12, pair him up with like an Amon-Ra St. Brown, AJ Brown, somebody like that, and just have a great start to your draft.
I'm glad you're thinking like we have the same mindset because the running back position is so scarce, right? You really want, I like robust RB, and I define robust RB as grabbing three running backs in the three workhorse running backs in the first 3 rounds. It's so crucial because then you end up with a guy like a J.K. Dobbins or a Miles Sanders or someone like that as your RB1, which again gets a little dicey. But I'm with you on this. Saquon has a massive ceiling. Obviously, I was questioning the whole contract deal. I think he's got over $13 million coming in with incentives. Again, what do you think? Do you think that's going to be enough to light a fire under 13 million? I think he still has to prove himself this year for him to get like a mega contract, even if that happens. What do you think money wise with him? Is that enough? Is the carrot big enough here for him for this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Really, it's all about like the team, and the team is good enough to. They made the
Right.
playoffs last year. Like, I don't know how he's not motivated. And Saquon is, I think he's 26 right now, so he still has plenty of years behind him to get a good
Right.
contract. You're starting to see running backs have a little bit more longevity, like seeing what Austin Eckler did. He's going into his age 28 season. So I think Barkley will be plenty motivated to have a good season. And I think the Giants are not going to be afraid to essentially just run him into the ground this year.
Yeah, I think he's definitely a lion pick. You like our lion roar there? We got roars here. We got sheep sounds. We got tons of stuff. That's our favorite, the lion roar. So we're totally agreeing on this one. I have no debate. Mind you, Ryan, I got to tell you, I did like Barkley a little bit better last year. He was consensus top outside the top 10. So I was getting him in the second round. I kind of sniffed that out. So again, I'm excited about him. Next guy I want to get your thoughts on him is Bijan Robinson, aka Bijan. Now, I don't know if you know what I do. I call him Bijan. Turns out, I want to get this out in the open. I want everybody to hear this. There was a recent video that came out with Bijan, and he said Bijan is actually not the correct way to say it. I think it's Bajan or something like that, the way that his mom likes it said. And again, I'm butchering it the way that his mom says it. But apparently Bijan isn't even the right way. So I say Bijan. His mama says it differently, and he says it differently. Either way, we don't really care so much about the name. We care about the performance. And there's something just telling me he's going to have a great season. Now, did you watch I think it was week 2 of preseason. Did you see the little small flashes of Bijan in the second game there in preseason?
Yeah, I saw a couple of clips of Robinson, and I mean he's going to be a stud. I don't think there's
Yeah.
any doubt about that. The Falcons were a little bit weird, like putting him lower on the depth chart to
Yeah.
start the year, but I mean I don't really think that means anything.
Yeah, I didn't like that either. It's almost kind of like they play it like politically correct, almost because like they don't want to like offend their existing running back.
The
Oh, sorry,
veterans.
we respect you. We. It's like, why aren't you like watching what they're doing? It's like, watch what I do, not what I say, right? Like, it's like we just went out and got this guy in the first round. Like, dude, we want him to be our one, but we're not gonna say that. We're just gonna still kind of like coddle, Algier and Patterson. So you guys are still like, I think that's total BS. Why don't you just be straight shooters? Put him on the top of that depth chart. We know he's the guy. He's the man. He ran the ball over 500 times. He's going to get over 250 carries this year, plus receptions. I just think he's going to absolutely go off, and they're going to play their best players, which is Bijan Bijan. I'm excited about. Are you excited about him? I think you got a good feeling about him too, right?
Yeah, I do like Robinson a lot. I think Patterson's dealing with an injury right now.
I heard
So,
that. Yeah.
yeah, so he may be like kind of eased into the season. And I mean, Patterson's, into his 30s now. I mean, really, are they giving Tyler Algier a 5th round guy? Like, yeah, he was fine last year, but like, obviously Robinson's the man. They may mix in Algier, here and there,
Right.
but that's not really any different than any other team. It's not like McCaffrey's, never going to leave the field. They're going to mix in Elijah Mitchell and
Yeah.
stuff like that as well. So yeah, I mean, I wish Robinson wasn't going, as high as he was in some of these drafts. You're certainly going to have to pay up for him. But there's other risks in the first round where he's going, as far as like Cooper Kupp's health, and Austin Eckler just getting older and older as well. So I
Yeah.
think Robinson, if you do like to go running back early, is definitely a guy to target in the first round.
Ryan, one thing I preach every single year is that, what happens last year doesn't happen this year. So I always factor in a regression for the guys that finished on top last year. So Christian McCaffrey, I feel is going to fall off. While I can't predict injuries, I saw what he did in 2020 and 2021, played a combined 10 games. And now you've got Elijah Mitchell. I think he only played like 5 games last year. If he's healthy, he's going to get some more work. Purdy's settled in. Kittle's there. They got options, right? Ayuk might get going this year. So for me, I'm factoring in a regression significantly, even if you don't have an injury in there. So you got to take a look at who's stepping up. I think Bajan's one of those guys that steps up. So I've got him. People call me crazy, but I don't think it's crazy at all because he's coming off sixth pick, right? So I just take him first overall and I factor in that he's going to come up this year. And I did the same thing last year. I had like Henry ahead of Taylor, and I just knew that Taylor was going to decline. Didn't expect him to fall right off the cliff, which he did last year, but I did factor in a decline. I just faded him and Cup in the first picks. That's my logical. That's the way I kind of think.
Well, and Counselor, running back is one of those positions where in the fantasy landscape, there's more turnover than any other
Yeah.
position. It changes a ton from year to year, where some of the other positions are much more stable.
Yeah, like even like a Jefferson, who I factor in a decline this year. I mean, 1,800 yards. Very unlikely it's going to happen with the addition of Hawkinson, Addison. That's different offense, but it could happen. But you're a little safer, I think, with Jefferson because we saw Antonio Brown do it for consecutive years, finishing near the top. So I think receivers can. Yeah, you're right. Good point. Receivers can just do it. I've talked about it, and then running backs. High turnover. And again, looking back, you're a stats guy. Let's go back to Priest Holmes, 2002, 2003. I always give this example. He was like the only running back as of that we can remember going back in our recent memory. I don't think 2002 doesn't even seem recent anymore, where he went back to back on top. Priest Holmes, dudes, like, come on. So it's very unlikely they finish on top again. So we're going to have to see what happens this year. And obviously, Eckler, new offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, less checkdowns, Lombardi, the addition of Quentin Johnson. I keep saying this. I sound like a broken record, but I got to reinforce the reasons why I just don't believe in Eckler. And obviously the Chargers don't because they didn't pay him that mega contract, in my opinion. But that's besides the fact. So we're on the same page for the first two. I thought we'd be arguing a little bit more. We'd be taking off the hats, but hasn't happened yet. Maybe as we
Maybe
get
later.
Maybe later. Yeah. Stay tuned. All right. So your next guy, and again, I agree with you on this, but this is a really good one to dive into because at the time of this recording, there's some uncertainty with Jonathan Taylor. Obviously, I heard as of recently yesterday, and they're recording this on the 25th. So don't come at us and say, oh, Jonathan Taylor, this and that, he's on this team and that. We don't know because this is recorded on the August 25th. So Taylor contract deals, Jim Irsay, owner, I think it's Jim Irsay, they're having issues. They don't want to pay him. They gave him permission for trade. There's tons of potential suitors that are looking at him, including the Dolphins. And again, when we talked about this was even before the trade request. I think you gave me this name. We're going to stick to it. Do you still like Jonathan Taylor? What do you think happens? What's going on? What's the latest on Jonathan Taylor?
Yeah, I was assuming that Taylor was one that you might push back on me. So it's interesting that we're on the same page
No, I
here.
like him. He's on upwards trend for me.
Yeah, I mean, so you mentioned the Dolphins as, a potential suitor. So hypothetically, if Taylor is traded to the Dolphins, how many running backs are you taking ahead of Taylor? Like the list is certainly on one hand.
Yeah.
So you're talking about a guy that's going in like, like mid to late third round right now.
I thought
That
he's
could
round two. Last I checked, he was like round two, give or take. I
I
mean,
think he's falling a little bit as
yeah,
people are nervous about
for sure.
all the speculation. And so, if you're in a draft today and you take Taylor in the mid third round, in a week from now, he could potentially be like a mid to late first round guy, depending
Yeah,
on where he goes. So if you're playing like an underdog best ball mania, or you're just playing some kind of, best ball tournament in
right.
general, like you're going to have to take some risks to win those.
Yeah, I like the
And
mentality. That's why I had Rotowire on, because I know you guys think logically for the most part. Minus,
I
minus,
try
minus
to.
your other two picks, unless you justify why you've got these two running back ones. I can't wait to get to those picks because I'm totally against those. But sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to say I like the logical thinking here in the upside.
Yeah, so I mean, there's uncertainty with Taylor. We don't know what's going to happen. He could end up staying with Indy. They could keep him on the pup list, and he could miss 4 games. And in that case, like, yeah, the Taylor pick looks bad, but he could be traded to somebody where he's in a really good spot. He could stay with the Colts, and
Yeah, I heard
like
that.
if you look at it, like the Colts have nobody behind him. Like you're talking these guys like Deion Jackson. It's like if Taylor ends up staying with the Colts, like he's gonna get fed the ball a ton. And yeah, he struggled a bit last year, but like their whole offense, their whole team, everything was just a huge mess last year. They can't be any worse than that. Anthony Richardson is at least going to give defenses a different look. I think things set up really well for Taylor to have a good year as long as he's on the field.
Yeah, I mean, they got Evan Hall on the depth chart. They got Zach Moss, so I think he was banged up.
Yeah.
Deion Jackson. They just recently, I think, got Kenny and Drake. What a disaster there in the backfield. But the way I look at it is like Taylor has to perform wherever he ends up. And yeah, you could be getting him for an absolute bargain round 2 and 3. But again, I just still think he has to perform. Like, even if he wants another team, let's just say he stays with the Colts, I think he still has to perform to show to another team or to tell him, hey, I deserve this contract. I'm arguably one of the best, if not the best running back in the game. He had a down year, but he is capable of getting the 1,800 yards on the ground. Like he's capable. He is. He just needs to get back on the field and get happy. And there's so many disgruntled running backs this year. It's been crazy. Everybody seems angry. Eckler not getting that mega contract. Jacobs still, what's going on with any update on Jacobs? I think he's still kind of in the air right now, right? I think he checked into camp though. I think he's
Yeah,
checked.
I'd have to look more into Jacobs. I don't know his exact situation. I mean, in general, like running backs are in a really tough position where they have to sign these 4-year contracts as rookies, and by the time those are done, they're 26 or 27,
Right.
and then the NFL is like, oh, well, you're old at this point. We don't want to give you a big contract. So,
Yeah.
I understand their frustration. The problem is they just don't have much leverage, and
No.
so these guys like Taylor and Jacobs, like, are you going to go the Le'Veon Bell route and just sit out a year? I don't see it. I think they're all going to be on the field and playing.
Yeah, I think so too, especially with a guy like Jacobs. I mean, he was good his rookie year here and there, but then he had this pinnacle year last year, and he's going to try to ride that wave as much as he can. But is he going to stay consistent? That's a big question mark. He had the benefit of Derek Carr there and a good receiver, and I think everything fired on all cylinders perfectly for him. So
Well,
we're
and
just going
counselor, it's
to.
kind of what you were talking about when you factor in that regression. Like you have to think Jacobs is a strong regression candidate this
I
year.
think so. Good point. Yes, absolutely. And that's where he's trying to desperately cash in before he knows and we know that he's going to probably go down. So,
Yeah.
not necessarily injury, just regression in general.
Yep.
He wants to, cash in while he's high. All right, the next guy I'm really high on, I'd like to get your feedback on him. And I'll give you the reasoning on why I'm so high on him. The guy I'm talking about is Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, obviously, the biggest misconception, the problem with Jahmyr Gibbs right now is that, oh, well, David Montgomery is there. Now, David Montgomery looked okay in these years with Chicago, a little lackluster, a little banged up here and there. Not a guy that looked outstanding. Now, they paid him, I don't know what it was. I'm not going to quote it right. I think it's like 3 years, 18 million, or something like that, give or take. I don't know
It
the exact.
was, yeah.
Something
Yep.
like that, yeah. So, did I even spell Jameer's name wrong? I'm butchering. Jahmyr. I edited. Okay, I
Yeah.
gotta edit this here, guys. Sorry, I'm butchering names. I'm typing names wrong. There you go. I mean, Jahmyr. There we go. That looks better. Jahmyr Gibbs. So we got it right. So again, I just think everybody, based on recency bias, is thinking, okay, well, Williams had a good year. He's going to be the goal line vulture. Montgomery's going to have the same amount. while that's very viable that Montgomery is going to be used around the goal line, which I think he is, just not as much because he is not Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs is not DeAndre Swift. And DeAndre Swift wasn't on the field a lot last year. If healthy, Jahmyr Gibbs, talent rise to the top, will be the man, right? And not only that, he's going to be used in the receiving game, and he's just ultra explosive. I mean, once this guy just gets a break, he's gone. No one's catching this guy. So I'm just so excited about the explosive capability of him. And I've watched tape, and some people say, "Well, Joe, stop watching highlight reels. They're just highlight reels," you know. But he looked so like he just jumped. Did you watch tape on this guy? He just jumps out. He's amazing on tape.
Yeah, so it's crazy to say this, but like you want a piece of the Lions offense.
Yeah,
Like they're just gonna score a ton of points. And so yeah, I don't think this is gonna be a situation, exactly like Swift and Williams was last year. I think Gibbs is going to get plenty of work. Um, I think Montgomery is a reasonable target as well later on because I do think he's going to get he's going to get a decent share as well. I think part of the reason I like Gibbs is just looking at who's going around him. Like I like him more than Josh Jacobs. I like him more than Joe Mixon. I like him
right.
more than Stevenson. Even if you look at like some of the receivers in that range, like Calvin Ridley's sliding up ahead of him. I think there's plenty of other guys with, bigger question marks than Gibbs. And sometimes you just have to bet on talent as well. And when you're looking at, guys in that third round range, who has the potential to be like top 5 at their position? Like if things go well, Gibbs could be a top 5 running back this year in
Easily.
that offense.
Easily, tons of upside. I do like you talk about the Lions offense. I really love Laporta for the value. I think he's right
Yep.
now the second target right now. And I'm not sold on Williams being capable coming back. What is he coming back week 7 for that
Yeah.
suspension? Again, I think at that point Laporta will be integrated. They'll be all set. Amon-Ra is great value, but he's second round. So yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs has that upside. And the analogy I give is that all the consensus told you last year, the Consheeps is what did I say? They all told you DeAndre Swift top 8 PPR. I remember it clear as day. I got the magazines to show you. But what I wanted to say is that like he was coming off like first round. I said Swift years to wild, we're not wild, can't stay healthy. Be careful. Now you're getting like this amazing, better version of Swift. Like Swift 10x, that which I think value wise, talent wise, and then you're getting him in like the third round. So I'm just like I'm all over it now. I'm all over this pick. But mind you, just be prepared that you're going to be upset certain weeks. Montgomery's going to steal that goal line work, and that's something that I've kind of accepted with this pick. And that's just what I got to live with. And he's not going to be my RB1. I go robust RB. He's going to be like my RB2, 3. So I'm good to go with him.
Yeah, I mean, how many times last year did Jamal Williams have those like 2 or 3 touchdown games? And like if
Yeah.
you had Swift, it was super frustrating. But I just don't think it's that same situation, kind of like you mentioned, where like Montgomery is solely the one being used at the goal line. He's
Yeah.
just not the same running back as Williams is.
It's been really crappy. A lot of teams just going committee, and it's really killing the value. And speaking of committee, the gloves are coming off here. Ryan, are you ready? Speaking of
Let's do it.
committee, years to wow us, we're not wowed. And again, this is nice refreshing to hear another perspective and get the feedback. But your guy here that you like is he a must have? I guess that's the name of the show. Kenneth Gainwell, 5th round pick into his 3rd season, has done nothing. Kenneth Gainwell, I'm not touching this guy at all. So I want to hear your feedback. I'm just gonna sit back and relax. I don't know. I don't get what's going on with this pick. Why you like Kenneth Gainwell?
Well, I mean, part of it just comes down to opportunity. And even if like you don't totally believe in Gainwell's talent, the Eagles head coach Sirianni does believe in his talent. If you
Okay.
look at their last 3 playoff games last year, Gainwell had double-digit touches. They played in the preseason last night. It was Trey Sermon out there. Like Gainwell was rested. Like his spot on the team, his involvement on the team is, in my opinion, it's pretty locked in. I'm not saying he's going to out touch DeAndre Swift. But like, it's not like they gave Rashad Penny a bunch of money. Like,
Hold on. I just want to hold you accountable here. I look at stats. So I'm looking, what would you say last year? Because I'm looking, he only got 4 attempts week 16, 0 and 17, and 5 attempts in week 18. So he didn't get that volume.
In the playoffs.
Well,
There
playoffs, sorry, my bad. That's why I wanted
Yeah,
to
yeah,
go
yeah,
back.
yeah.
Okay.
So like
I read that wrong.
yeah, you're right. I mean, there's definitely times where Gainwell is not going to be like super involved. It may depend on, a week to week basis, the game flow and whatnot. He's a guy that's going to be in there like, 2 minute drills, and not to like compare him to like James White, but like, sometimes those guys that are just in there, in those 2 minute drills can rack up a lot of points just being on the field when it's a fast pace. And so him getting that kind of work in the playoffs tells me that Sirianni really likes him. The other thing about like Swift and Penny is that those guys are just injury prone.
Right.
Those guys, and I get it. Like you said, like we can't predict injuries, and it's possible that Swift could make it all year without getting injured. But odds are, at least one of them is probably going to miss some time during the year, and that means Gainwell's one of those guys that you can take in the 11th or 12th round, and you're going to be able to plug him in. When you have injuries to your starters, or you're dealing with some bye weeks, like Gainwell's at least a guy that you can trust will get you some touches.
Yeah. So, yeah, the thing is, I think if the perfect storm brews, Kenneth Gainwell can be viable. So, I'm reading some reports here. Apparently, he was the prominent feature back in training camp. Looks good. I think you got to have Swift or Penny and or one of them go down, and then he just grabs the bull by the horns and he goes. And also, my concern is I think Eagles are one of the people that are looking at Jonathan Taylor. So it's crazy. They just don't believe in their guy. It's almost like they're playing like running back roulette. Like we're hoping Gainwell breaks out. We're hoping that Penny stays healthy, becomes the guy the Lions think he was. Or no, sorry, Swift becomes the guy, and then we think that Penny might be the guy that averages 6.1 yards per carry when he actually does play the 2 games that he does. So it's just like they're just kind of hoping. But again, I think if the perfect storm brews, they don't bring in a Taylor, they don't bring in a free agent like Leonard Fournette, Penny goes down, then Gainwell's viable. The way that it sits now, I just don't see that the volume's going to be there for him. So,
And yeah, I mean that's possible. If they bring somebody in, then if you
watch.
drafted Gainwell, he may be a guy you just end up dropping. But at the same time, like if you end up dropping a 12th round, 11th, 12th round pick, it's not going to kill your team.
As of right now, it's Kenneth Painwell because I haven't seen anything from him. So, all right, but maybe, just maybe. I mean, this is something we'll come back. We'll bring you back on the show. I'll be like, hey, I was wrong on Gainwell. He is the GOAT, but I really doubt it. So when I'm looking in later rounds, now this guy, I think Gainwell's sitting 48th on the consensus rankings ish. So I mean, good value if you need somebody there. But I would much rather have him. I think he comes off a little later. Is my next guy, the Tank Bigsby. Now, Tank Bigsby has been looking good in camp. A guy I was talking about back in May because I'm not sold on ATN. Now, numbers. Let's talk about numbers here because everybody seems to be, not everybody, but a lot of people are still on the ATN train. He's coming off earlier, like round 3-ish, give or take, right? So if you look at a guy like ATN, he had the opportunity to shine last year, 220 attempts. I don't have the number in front of me, but it was 220 attempts. But I look at a game-to-game basis, there was a lot of eggs he laid, a 0.3 point game, a 3.2 game. You're a DFS guy, very inconsistent. Are you sold, honestly? And again, don't do what I say, what I'm saying here, but honestly, are you genuinely sold on ATN being the man, or do you think Bigsby can potentially take that RB1 role or just get integrated almost in a 50-50 split? What are your thoughts on this? Because I think Bigsby's the man. ATN's a wash for me. I'm not drafting him.
Yeah, so as a guy that did own some ETN last year, he was really frustrating as a fantasy manager. He had a few like 20-point
Yep.
fantasy games, but like you said, like he started the season with just like 6 absolute duds.
Yeah,
I think the talent is there on ETN,
for sure.
but again, it kind of comes down to opportunity. And so when you have a team draft a guy on day 2 of the
Third
NFL
round. Yeah,
draft, like they're not doing that to just have the guy ride the bench. So yeah, from a fantasy perspective, like ETN is a guy I'm fading at his draft price. and I do like Bigsby. Not to like, agree with all of your picks here,
Yeah.
but I think Bigsby makes a lot of sense.
And you've noticed with my guys, there's tons of running backs I do like. Like I said, I like your Taylor. I like Barkley. I think Chubb is a safe guy. Lacks his PPR upside,
Okay.
like you're mentioning. But most of my guys are rookies, but they're not just rookies. They're rookies, I think, in great positions to succeed for great average draft positions. Like, again, Byjan a little expensive. Gibbs, I think he'll be a bargain once, the season starts coming together. But Bigsby, I think, could be an absolute steal. I like it. And again, the coaches are liking it. If you just Google Tank Bigsby news, you can hear like he's going to have a more prominent role. He's going to be integrated more, blah, blah. Like he did well in preseason. I know it's just preseason. I don't give it too much weight, but I'm just ultra excited about Tank Bigsby this year. I think he's a beast. And if you look at him, I saw a picture side by side. Bigsby's a beefier guy, a little stronger. And when he runs, he's cutting really well outside. He's running hard. He just has this pep in his step that I'm not seeing it with ATN. So I don't know, man. We're going to see how this fizzles out, but I think that talent rises to the top. And out of courtesy, we were talking about courtesy, ATN's a starter. They're going to give him the shot. But if he starts fumbling, which he has, or drops the ball, which I've seen him do before,
Yep.
Bigsby can really capitalize on that opportunity. I'm super
Yeah.
excited about
I,
this.
I remember week 1 last year, he dropped a wide open touchdown. I mean, it's not like he is like the most efficient back in the league. Like he's good, he's fast, but like, how many times last year were they mixing in JaMychal Hasty,
Yeah.
especially at like the goal line? So I mean, Bigsby's going to see plenty of work. Again, I try not to take too much stock in the preseason, but like it doesn't hurt that he had 13 carries for 70 yards. Like that's pretty darn efficient. The coaches see that. They drafted him. Was Urban Meyer that drafted ETN, I think. So that coaching staff is gone. So they're going to want to get the ball to the guy that they drafted. So I think we're
Absolutely.
going to see somewhat of an even mix,
Yeah.
surprisingly, between the two.
I agree. And hopefully Bigsby takes over because I got some stock. All right, next guy. I gotta get my boxing glove up for this one, Ryan. I hope you have a boxing background because I have to box you on this guy. You ready for this one?
Let's do it.
All right, Raheem Mostert here. You got to sell me because all I'm looking at is stats. I'm looking at injuries. I'm looking at a guy who's in his 9th season and has 0. Count him 0. This is a donut, Ryan. This is a donut. Actually, I should have brought a donut on here and been eating on this during this one pick here. 0 1,000-yard rushing season. Like, correct me if I'm wrong here. I think he's only finished 2 full seasons. I did some information because I don't research this guy at all because I'm not sold on him. And again, I just think he's got to have that perfect storm for him in Miami to do anything. I mean, again, he does look good. I'm going to say he does look good on some runs when he's healthy and going, but that's got to stay consistent. What's the reasoning behind a must-have for Raheem Mostert other than the decent value and a potential upside, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, so naturally, you love the rookies, so you don't love the 31-year-old running back. So,
Exactly.
so I get that. So naturally, you're just out on Mostert. I mean, let's not say he's like inefficient. Like he has a career 5.4 yards per carry. So when he does touch the ball, he seems to do pretty well with it. Again, to me, it comes down to a couple of things. Where he's being drafted and the opportunity. And if the Dolphins don't make a move for a Jonathan Taylor or a Leonard
Right.
Fournette, like, Devin Achane is a small running back that already got injured in the preseason. His status for week 1 is in question. And so you're looking at to start the year, Mostert and Jeff Wilson looking at, plenty of touches. And the other thing I love about it too is just that Miami offense in general, kind of like what we were talking about earlier. I'd love to have a piece of the Lions offense. I
Yeah.
want pieces of the Dolphins offense as well. And you look at some of the other guys being drafted in his range. You're looking at guys like, Tyler Algier, Elijah Mitchell.
Yeah,
Like
I don't care for those guys at all.
exactly, like those guys aren't going to see nearly as much work. So yeah, I think the talent is there for Mostert and the opportunity is there as well. And there's just not a ton of risk at his ADP range.
I'm personally not touching him, although I do see the talent there. I just never, he's like the little engine that could, like he just couldn't get it going. He just never could get to that fifth gear or whatever you want to say it. I don't know the analogy I'm trying to give.
Well,
He just couldn't do it. I want to see him get there, but I don't know if it's this year or
yeah,
ever.
it's very unusual to see like such a late bloomer like Mostert. He didn't really get going until his age 27 season in San Francisco, but like he popped that year for 772 yards and 8 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So if he can get the opportunity, which I think he will, I think he can put up. He can definitely return on his 11th, 12th round ADP.
Well, there you have it. I can't wait to see what happens there. Raheem Mostert. I'm fading.
Okay.
All right, next guy here. I'd like to get your thoughts on him. He's become kind of like the NFL meme right now because he's so tiny, but he's like a bulldog. Is Deuce Vaughn. Again, I was getting him with my last pick in all drafts. He seemed to kind of creeping up a little bit. Like people are kind of drafting a 14th, 15th round as kind of like a flyer at the end. But what's so intriguing about him is his scrimmage yards. I don't know what year it was. I think it was a combination of the last couple of years in college. I think he had more scrimmage yards than by jam. Like he just got it done as a workhorse in college. His numbers are ridiculous. He's short, he's compact, low center of gravity. Deuce Vaughn, 5'5", 170 pounds ish, give or take. Again, the Cowboys have Pollard, which again, I'm not sold on Pollard. He was a backup for 4 years to Zeke. And then he got hurt last year only with 193 attempts. So in comes Deuce Vaughn. And this is, again, another opportunity similar to Raheem and Gainwell. If they don't bring in another back, a lingering Kareem Hunt or a lingering, at the time of this recording, right, a lingering Fournette or someone like that, there's a real opportunity for this guy to shine. And he's the son of the top scout for the Cowboys. So it seems like everything is kind of going his way. He looked good in preseason, also, and he's a good PPR guy. He can run in between. He can run to the outside. He's going to be a gadget player. I don't know, man. Based on the numbers in college, this guy's could potentially be used a lot. He could be a real draft gem and a real upside guy. The heart, I mean, you cannot deny how much heart this guy's got. What are your thoughts on him? Are you going to get a last round pick? Would you invest in a guy like him?
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it. I did watch a bit of Vaughn in college last year at Kansas State because I'm a big college football guy. And he was a big reason of why they were so good last year. I think a lot of times people are quick to write off a guy because of his size.
A lot, yeah.
You think like, oh, Russell Wilson's, too small or whatever. And like we don't see many 5'6" guys, but like you said, his heart could, can make up for that for sure. The other thing too is like, who's he really competing with? Like
Pollard, that's it. A backup.
right. Like the other guys on their roster are like, Rico Dowdle, an undrafted 25-year-old.
Rojo.
Yeah. So
Was
like,
he suspended? I think Rojo was suspended recently. Ronald Jones. I don't know what it was for. It says performance enhancing, but I'm not seeing much
yeah.
performance. I'm not seeing performance.
Yeah. So, again, it's a guy that they took in the 6th round. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to see a bunch of work, but just based on who else they have on the roster, I mean, at the end of drafts, like, yeah, he's worth a shot. But the thing I worry about there is kind of what you were talking about earlier is like the perfect storm kind of has to happen. And I just feel like if things aren't going well with Pollard in the lead role or
Yeah.
Pollard gets injured, like they're going to be Jerry Jones is
Yeah.
going to be quick to scoop up that Kareem Hunt or Leonard Fournette or whatever, insert whatever veteran free agent running back. So I think probably more of like a best ball guy, and maybe you might get a couple of spike weeks when the game is out of hand or whatnot.
I think he's going to be the biggest deal of the draft. I'm looking. You talk about that perfect storm. I think it's already brewing. Ronald Jones apparently is going to be missing the first 2 weeks. So right off the bat, he's going to be, if Ronald Jones was slated on the depth chart higher, Deuce Vaughn automatically gets that bye for the first week. So they're going to use him. If he explodes in the first 2 games, that's it. He's second on the depth chart immediately. And then you're talking Pollard injury. That's very viable. Again, got hurt with 193 attempts last year. It's no joke, man. I've talked to Cowboys fans. Like his injury was no joke. So that could linger. So again, the only concern is like bringing in a veteran like Leonard Fournette, but how much juice do those guys still have left? They're kind of past their, heyday and all that stuff. So I don't know. I just think the perfect storm is brewing for a guy and the value you get him for. Let's put it this way. He's on all my teams and I'm in a $2,000 buy-in league. I'm just like, I'm all in on him. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I mean that he's a must-have, and that's why I did the show. These are must-haves, and mind you, they're rookies, but they're rookies in the right position. Whereas you have a little more kind of like a safety kind of pick. Kind of we've seen these guys, the Gainwells and Mosterts. That's a decision. I like banking more on upside over a little more safe and secure is kind of what you're doing there. But either way, I think we're both taking some risks here. That's fantasy.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's like, would you rather, with the last pick of your draft, take some kind of like aging veteran, like a Deontay Foreman or a
No.
Gus Edwards, or
No.
would you rather take a guy like Deuce Vaughn that
Yes.
actually has a high ceiling if things go right?
Yeah, and these guys come in with hunger, right? Like the chip on this guy's shoulder is probably bigger than both of our heads put together. Like it's not even a chip. The guy's constantly being made fun of. I think there was a video, even though it was a joke. CeeDee Lamb had these cleats of like a little kid in the locker room. They're like, "Hey man, where's Deuce Vaughn's shoes?" Like the jokes continue, right? So you guys keep laughing. Keep laughing. I'll keep laughing with fantasy points, and he'll be laughing when he starts producing them. So it'll be interesting to see how he does. I'm rooting for him. I like the underdog.
Yep, I love it.
All right, man. Ryan, this is a great show. Guys, head on over right now to rotowire.com. Sign up for the DFS optimizer. It's really going to give you an edge. As you can tell, Ryan does know what he's talking about. He's a statistician. He knows the numbers. He analyzes, he studies this. This is a full-time job, right, Ryan? I mean, this is what you do.
Living the dream.
Absolutely. I mean, how many people can say they do this? I'm grateful for it myself. So rotowire.com, sign up for the DFS optimizer right now. Go create an account, and you guys are going to have a lot of tools at your disposal and grab the 16-round draft solution. Ryan, it was an absolute pleasure. Go follow him on, is that your Twitter, at Ryan, Pohle.
Yep.
At Ryan, Pohle, Ryan Pohle. Make sure you guys go follow him. Great insight. I had a lot of fun. Running back must-haves, and I still don't agree with the Kenneth Gainwell, Raheem Mostert take. But hey, I like the refreshing new take.
We're going to see how it plays out.
Yeah, you're going to come back on mid-season. I'm going to box you on here. Online. All right, Ryan, we'll talk soon, guys. We're out. Appreciate you guys. Subscribe. Thumbs up.